Illinois Democrat Bradley Schneider joining 230 other Democrats voting yes on abuse of power and 229 voting yes on obstruction of Congress. Fox's John Decker.
Democrats argued the president abused the powers of the presidency by ignoring and injuring national security and other vital interests to obtain an improper personal political benefit.
Republican Jim Jordan strongly defending the president.
The Democrats forgot two key things. Forgot about the facts and they forgot about fairness.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi may not send the articles of impeachment immediately to the Senate for trial.
We will make our decision as to when we're going to send it when we see what they're doing on the Senate side.
The Republican-controlled Senate will most likely not vote to remove the president from office. President Trump blasting House Democrats during his rally Wednesday night in Michigan, labeling his impeachment as a suicide march.
It's all going to end soon, and it's going to come out to a beautiful, great victory for the Republican Party and for this nation.
The president speaking in Battle Creek. A federal appeals court strikes down Obamacare's individual mandate rule, but says that does not invalidate the entire law.
The panel also ruling 2-1 other parts of the Affordable Care Act need further review to determine if they can be separated from the individual mandate. Dissenting Judge Carolyn Deneen King accused her colleagues of prolonging uncertainty over the future of the healthcare sector.
Fox's Steve Rappaport. The Supreme Court may eventually decide the fate of the Affordable Care Act, but for now, it remains in effect. America's listening to Fox News.
Did you know that home loan rates have plunged again? Would you like to take advantage of these lower rates to help lower your monthly payments? Refinancing doesn't have to be for another 30 years. It can be for 10, 15, or 20 years. It's up to you. Reduce your monthly payments. Pay off your loan earlier. At Bank Pacific, where we're open to closing your loan in a hurry.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Credit conditions apply.
People come to Chili's for a million reasons. For happy hour, date night, birthdays, or just because it's Tuesday. But if you ask us what brings people into our restaurants time and time again is that Chili's moment. You know the one. When you eat so much you want to fall asleep at the table, or when you meet up with good friends and it turns into a party. At Chili's, moments like these matter, and we want to make more of them. So there may be a million reasons to Chili's, but all you really need is one. Chili's, savor the moment in our new location in the Tumon Sands Plaza, 2nd floor.
The day after impeaching the president, the Democratic-led House is expected to overwhelmingly pass the rewrite of the trade bill to replace NAFTA. The new trade deal, the USMCA, is one of President Trump's campaign promises. Satellite images may reveal what North Korea's Kim Jong-un is planning for a Christmas present for the U.S., possibly a long-range missile.
Defense Secretary Mark Esper told reporters that forces stationed in South Korea are on a high state of readiness.
It is a concern, their rhetoric. We have seen talk of tests. I think that they will be likely if they don't feel satisfied.
North Korea is warned of a Christmas gift for the U.S. Special envoy to North Korea, Stephen Biegun, has called on the nation to restart denuclearization talks, saying in Seoul, let's get this done. We're here and you know how to reach us. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
A shooting outside a mall in Texas Wednesday night leaves 4 people wounded. San Antonio police say 2 are in serious condition. No word on any arrest or what caused the gunfire. 2 Chicago men are headed to prison for a long time for the gang murder of a 9-year-old boy.
A Cook County judge sentenced D. Wright, Boone Doty, and Corey Morgan to 90 and 65 years respectively for the murder of Tyshawn Lee. A jury convicted both of evidence the men lured the boy away from a basketball court and shot him to retaliate against the boy's father. Doty, Morgan, and others believe the boy's dad was part of a rival gang involved in the killing of Morgan's brother and wounding of his mother. Prosecutors said Morgan watched while Doty pulled the trigger. A third man involved in the murder, Kevin Edwards, pleaded guilty before trial. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
And I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
Now here's Bob in the traffic chopper. What's up, Bob?
Traffic's at a standstill right now with a guy standing in the middle of the street holding a sign. Let me zoom in. The sign says, "Free the fence."
Free the fence. And what does that mean, Bob?
Not sure, but the guy's out there smiling and waving in short shorts with a weird-looking little hat. He's got a sign in one hand and what looks like, is it? What? It is. It's a bottle of beer in the other.
Oh, no. That's Ray.
Free the fences in your mind with The Ray Gibson Show. Weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Do you have anything to add to that, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir, I do. Nothing.
Are you saying that
It's as good as it gets, sir.
It was as complete as it could possibly be?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, so long as I got anything to say about it. And as you all know, when right here on Tall Tales, when I have something to say about it, my entire international radio listening audience is listening. So that's a real strong power block out there, all you gun grabbers. You want to tangle with Tall Tales, be on guard, because you've been put on notice. Okay, so here we are, another exciting educational, informational episode of the top-rated FM afternoon talk show in the entire Western Pacific. It's called Tall Tales. And if you want to hear your voice transmitted to the entire international radio listening audience, all you need to do is call 888-TALK, 888-8255. And if you do, you will be able to have a little chat with the man, the myth, the legend, the real Joe Cruz, who will very kindly entertain you and let me know that you're on the line. And then you will have your chance, your 15 minutes of fame, so to speak, because you will be on the Tall Tales Network, the Worldwide Tall Tales Network. Another option that you may want to pursue is posting on our Facebook Live page here on Tall Tales. And as a general principle, I keep peeking at the posts on our Facebook page and oftentimes pick them up and integrate them into the heart of the program. So this is more than just a passive opportunity to observe. You may also be a participant if you so desire. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda today is what we refer to as semi-economy. And it's our local equivalent here of Meet the Press. As you all well know, I look at the two editorials. I usually beat up on the Daily News unmercifully because they almost never post a real editorial dealing with local affairs. They crib something from the Where is it today? Gannett News Service, USA Today Network, yeah, something like that. The Post ordinarily does a pretty good job of putting out a real local editorial that you can sink your teeth into. And the scorecard bears this out. Up until today, the Post has achieved 159 awards of the coveted Blue Star. The Daily News, only 55. And that, most of those were quite a while ago when the Daily News was still writing editorials. So this is what we get from the Daily News today. This is really of local interest. You know, all you folks, Malesu and Elahan, Humatak, going to want to listen to this. Tauta Zigu, Tauta Dediju, Lokwe. This is the title of it. Ukraine did not interfere. Doesn't get any more local than that, does it? Talking about Ukraine. Okay, so once again, this is another one that they cribbed from the USA Today network. Then we have the Post. And for this Post editorial, I suppose if you have a cup of hot cocoa handy, that would be nice. Make yourself real comfy on the couch there. Grab a couple of pillows or something, because this is meant to be a feel-good editorial. Little acts of kindness can give hope. There are still a few days left before Christmas, and that means there's time for us to make a difference in people's lives. Gifts and wrapping paper and ribbons would be wonderful, but generosity doesn't have to be given in a colorfully wrapped present, like brown paper packages wrapped up in strings. These are a few of my favorite things, Real Joe Cruz. Sometimes the best kinds of gifts come in the form of kindness. We can give words of encouragement to someone who's having a rough time. I'm going to do that right now. Come on, Daily News, you can do it. We can give gifts by volunteering our time or giving someone a ride to the clinic, pharmacy, post office, or to the grocery store to someone we know well. I have a friend that whenever he travels, Real Joe Cruz, I take him to the airport. Yeah, it's you know, it's something that doesn't cost me much, a little bit of time, but if you travel, you know that can be a pretty nice thing to be dropped off at the airport. Just showing you what a great guy I am. And a little later on, when I get into this a little farther, I'll tell you how proud I am of my modesty. We can offer a recommendation to a hard worker who needs a second job or a day job. It's not hard to see that there are people and families in our midst who are going through hardships. In some cases, a simple act of kindness can make a world of difference. What to you can be a small action can boost someone who is ready to give up and instead to take that one extra step towards pushing past the hurdles they face. Even the Post is politically correct. If we have some money to spare, there are things we can pay for, things that will go a long way towards boosting the confidence of someone having a tough time. A job seeker who needs a haircut for a job interview would appreciate the help of paying for the cost. Now here, a senior citizen. Yeah, let's be kind to senior citizens this Christmas, right? A senior citizen who is living alone could use some holiday cheer with a cleaning or lawn care service, or even just caroling. A young parent who works 2 jobs could use a day of help with babysitting to get some errands done. Young parents may also appreciate a gift card for baby diapers or an extra meal. A neighbor who doesn't have friends or family visiting for the holidays could use some home-cooked holiday meals. You know, once upon a time, I don't remember who coordinated this, but people were encouraged to invite service. I was going to say servicemen, but I caught myself in time. People were encouraged to invite service people to Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner since they're a long way from home. And yeah, I don't know if people do that anymore or not. Workers who are away from families might appreciate a phone card for calling overseas. There are Guamanians who need at least a one-time visit to a doctor or a dentist, and that one visit will mean a lot to ease their discomfort or pain. You know what I've always said, Real Joe Cruz? You've got to be true to your teeth, or they'll be false to you. Our doctors and dentists could open their generosity for this type of giving. Oh, okay, doctors and dentists. How about some freebies there? The Guam Daily Post's Hope for the Holidays program. In the Guam Daily Post's Hope for the Holidays program, we asked Guamanians to suggest who might be deserving of a little holiday cheer this Christmas. We received many letters recommending a family or individual who could use some cheer. We thank the many I wonder if those letters were signed. I hope not, for the sake of the people who were mentioned in the letters, because if the letters were signed, nobody's going to pay any attention to them. We thank the many concerned Guamanians who took time to write and describe the hardships others are going through. What these letter writers did was give the initial act of kindness by caring. They care about neighbors, friends, co-workers, casual acquaintances, and others, and they put action to that concern. Now it's up to the rest of us to do our part or do more. Let's practice the spirit of giving because many of us are fortunate enough to give help in even the smallest ways. I told you it's a feel-good editorial, you know. Let's concentrate on kindness now, okay? So I hear what they're saying, and I can't say that I disagree with some of the basic premises. However, Tall Tales is still Tall Tales. And if you check through the Tall Tales pictures, if you check the signals that the catcher on Tall Tales gives to the pitcher, he doesn't have a sign for softballs. We don't toss around softballs around here. Notwithstanding the command from the Speaker of the 35th Guam Legislature, I don't give people a break. Tina says, give me a break. And you know the old saying, well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. The actual meaning of that phrase, give them the benefit of the doubt, is the facts don't sound exactly right. The facts are doubtful. But I'm going to go along with what they say anyhow, even though I think the facts are questionable. We don't give the benefit of the doubt much here on Tall Tales. And then another real popular one nowadays is to reach out to people. Well, once in a while I will reach out to somebody, but reaching out does not mean calling a person on your cell phone. You know, there's an old rock and roll song, reach out. Yeah, I'll be there, reach out. In other words, it's to reach out for someone is to extend at least a little bit of emotional support. It means more than just talking with that person. Anyhow, that's the orientation here on Tall Tales. I hope that people will be kind. I certainly would attempt to show the kindness that the Post urges in my own personal life. And after all, it is Christmas. And although from time to time you'll hear me mutter the immortal quote of Ebenezer Scrooge, blah, humbug. I do have a little room for the Christmas spirit. So with no further ado, I pick up my blue pen and put it right back on the desk because no blue stars today. No blue stars for that. Okay, now we turn to the card for December 19. And the first thing let me tell you what's on the card. I've got 12 Days of Christmas, and I've got something from the House of Representatives, from the Poet Laureate of the House of Representatives. I've got Tello versus Tina. Yesterday it was on the card as, yeah, there you go, Real Joe Cruz. Tello versus Tina. Yesterday it was on the card as Mike San Nicolas versus Tina, and it's about Bill 181. Then I've got Weir versus Amata Coleman Rademagen, which is a holdover from a couple of days ago. I haven't got a chance to finish. Then I've got Victor Davis Hansen versus the left, the United States versus China, the left versus the Salvation Army, and Antonio Gramsci versus Yall. These have been on the bottom of the card for a long time. So the 12 Days of Christmas, you're all familiar with that poem that we hear, that song that we hear every year. It has sort of 12 verses, and it starts out, on the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. And you know why pear trees are dangerous? California, they're controlled substances. And the second day of Christmas, it was 2 turtle doves, and they're on the endangered species list. The third day of Christmas, French hens, which might put you smack in the middle of the fight between California and Missouri. The fourth day of Christmas, I think we finally decided it. The fourth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 4 blackbirds. And that potentially puts you in the same boat as with turtle doves. And on the 5th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 5 golden rings. And I explained the pitfalls yesterday of an exchange of a ring, especially when the ring is a gift premised on the possibility of nuptials. That means getting married, Real Joe Cruz. And I attempted to sort of spell out the dilemma. It's a kind of a contractual dilemma, where you have offer and acceptance and what's called an implied contract or maybe a quasi-contract. And I attempted to explain it clearly by saying, if a man wants to marry a woman, and then, I just realized how stupid I must have sounded. If a man wants to marry a woman. How 20th century can I be? I'm showing my age, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah. So, and then I changed that to, if they want to marry them, and they give them an engagement ring, and they and them, also referred to as they, decide they don't want to get married, does they have to give them the ring back? So that was kind of the dilemma yesterday. It took me a little while longer to explain it because if I could have used regular English, the way we used to talk up until about 6 or 7 years ago, I probably could have explained it in about 1 paragraph. But when I have to use politically correct pronouns, it takes much longer. And I suspected by the time I finished the explanation, no one understood what I was talking about, even including me. But political correctness is far more important than understandability, correctness, accuracy, and these other things that don't come anywhere close to the importance of feelings and how much we would hurt someone's feelings by using the wrong pronoun when we refer to them. So I had to do it that way. Then yesterday we had 6 geese a-laying. We shall refer, and that goes back to the egg issue between Missouri and California and organic eggs. And today we've got, on the 7th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 7 swans a-swimming. If you get the swan swimming, keep them that way, at least in the United Kingdom. Under English law, it is illegal to kill a swan. Evidently, they belong to the Queen. No doubt she would be very, very angry with you if they died. So I guess 7 swans a-swimming would be okay here, but not if you happen to go to the United Kingdom. Okay, tomorrow it's going to be a real tough one because it's 8 maids a-milking. So, a maid is a word that we refer to as someone. It used to be a word that we used to refer to females. But I suspect nowadays it has to be used to refer to people who consider themselves to be females, even though their chromosomal makeup may not be consistent with their feelings. And then, of course, milking, that's a real problem. Is it possible, Real Joe Cruz, in this era of political correctness, would it be possible to milk a bull?
I believe so, sir.
I can't see any reason not to be able,
Yeah, I think it's possible.
To say that you could only milk a cow, if you could only milk a female, that would be so sexist.
I think you can milk a bull.
Yeah, and it would really hurt the cow's feelings. Okay, so much for that. And next we go to a House Republican poet for a poem called, and this was obviously last night, "'Twas the Night Before Impeachment." And here's how it goes. "'Twas the night before impeachment, and all through the House, Pelosi chased vulnerable Democrats like a cat after a mouse. The articles were sent to the Capitol without care and put before all members after a process far from fair. The Democrats were restless, not snug in their beds, while nightmares of November danced in their heads. And the whole country knew those 4 facts to be true. Pelosi looked away, but not Jeff Van Drew. When what to my wondering eyes should I see but the coastal impeachment squad with hearts full of glee? Away to the cameras, Democrats flew in a dash. They couldn't resist impeaching the president despite the backlash. Pelosi sprung from her chair and to her team gave the okay. And weary Democrats knew they had to obey. Oh, let's see. On Swalwell, on Lofgren, on Jackson Lee, I know you'll vote yes on impeachment. You always follow me. So, a little poetry from the House of Representatives, and I heard on the radio this morning that the Democrats did it. They impeached President Trump. So they've plowed some new ground there. You can impeach a president for what is referred to as abuse of authority and for not cooperating with Congress. Once again, rewriting that sacred document known as the United States Constitution, which talked in terms of treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. And the word crappy personality is not anywhere in the impeachment section at all. Okay, so then next on my card here is Tello versus Tina. And this is really something. This is a story from last night's PNC News. Speakers. Okay, let's take a short break here, and I'll come back to Tello versus Tina.
The holiday season is here, and it gives us pause to reflect on the abundance of 2019 and to express our gratitude for Guam, the island we call home, and to all Guamanians. Our team here at Security Title is proud of the work we do to support ourselves and our families, to serve and care for our customers, and to give back to our community. May this season of joy and the new year bring happiness, good health, and prosperity to you and yours. Merry Christmas from all of us at Security Title.
Water. It covers nearly 3/4 of our Earth. From vast oceans to millions of rivers and streams, we're all concerned with protecting our world's water. But none is more important than the water you and your family drink and use throughout your home. A Connecticut water treatment system can improve your water so that your family is using the best water in the world. Connecticut, for refreshing ideas on water.
American Water Tech. A passion for improving lives through better water.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Try their featured special for December. Seafood Lao Lao, a medley of salmon, shrimp, scallops, and fresh spinach, wrapped in tea leaves, steamed to order, and topped with soy butter sauce, and your choice of starch. Visit Mezcla in Hagåtña and now in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, so here we are after that short break, and we pick up with Tello versus Tina, which was on the card yesterday as Mike San Nicolas versus Tina. Actually, it's more like Tina versus Mike San Nicolas. And I think you might probably remember what's going on here. This is Bill 181. This is the Democrats' feeble attempt to steal Mike San Nicolas's thunder. I think everyone is painfully aware how badly Madeline screwed up the whole war claims process. She had the opportunity back in 2008. John McCain offered her a deal that he would see our war claims bill through the Senate, provided that the awards would only go to people who were alive at the time that the bill passed, or in the alternative, anyone who was killed during the Japanese occupation. That was it. And the money would have come from the federal treasury, according to that. Well, Madeline said she had to come home and check with her constituents. And she diddled around and lost it. Once again, proving that 50% of something is a whole lot more than 100% of nothing. So Madeline wasn't done with war claims. In this last session, the last Congress that she was in, which was the last U.S. Congress, she was able to get the war claims bill passed. But there was a technical problem with it. And the problem was that language necessary for the Department of Treasury to actually cut a check was missing. Language assigning the war claims to the War Claims Commission was there. Language saying that our own Section 30 money would be the source of funds to pay it, but that final link wasn't there. And you know what Madeline said about that during her term in office, including right up through the campaign? You know what she said, Michael? Real Joe Cruz?
No, I don't, sir.
Nothing. She didn't say boo about this problem. We didn't find out about it until Michael San Nicolas was sworn into office, and we found out, the bill passed, but it's not going to go anywhere because of the missing language. So Michael introduced remedial legislation to fix it. That's his bill. I think it's 1435. And not long after that, to not be outdone by someone in Washington whose job it is to work with the United States Congress, Lou and Tina said, we have a better idea. Rather than wait for that to happen, we're going to pay the money ourselves, and then we'll get reimbursed by the feds once everything is in place. So I was in something of a dilemma. I didn't know whether to refer to what Tina and Lou were doing as showboating or grandstanding. I think there's a difference. I use, as an example of showboating, I use the basketball player who's dribbling the ball down the court, and not because he wants to change direction or because he's looking for a good pass, does a behind-the-back dribble, causing everyone in the auditorium to go, ooh, wow, did you see that? Did you see what he just did? Grandstanding, on the other hand, I think is more like if you score a layup, you run around giving your having your teammates high five you. I think maybe that's the difference. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter, because they tried to do both. At the same time, pandering to old folks by saying, you know, our Madamko have waited for so long, and it's just time that we do something to try to get that money to the Madamko. So we're trying our best, knowing that they don't have a chance of affecting the process, except maybe in a negative sense, but still looking for the opportunity to be able to say, we tried. We were with you. We were fighting for you all the way down the line, Madamko. St. Nicholas warned them, saying, you know, my bill has a really good chance of going all the way through, but you may scuttle it. It may very well be that people in the Senate would, when they found out what you're doing, are saying, if you guys want to do it out there, why are you bothering us? Go ahead and do it. We're out of here. In other words, what they were doing may have been good campaign-type politics, but it may have been counterproductive to actually putting any money in anybody's hands. So we pick up with last night's PNC news story. The 5 senators who voted against moving Bill 181 to the voting file without debate were Senators Tello, Louise Munya, James Moylan, Sabina Paris, and Therese Terlahi. And then we have a quote. It is quite disappointing that the majority opted to ramrod Bill 181 straight into the voting file without giving the measure a fair opportunity of discussion on the legislative floor. That's what Moylan said. I support the intent of Bill 181, said Tello Taitigui. In her release, however, this bill is supposed to help our war survivors, and to disrespect them is a disgrace to our greatest generation, that they are not important enough. This is truly a sad moment for the people of Guam, as Speaker Barnes and Rules Chair Lee fail to ensure transparency with Bill 181. I guess Lee was back from her tete-a-tete with Barack Obama in Kuala Lumpur. And I wonder, you know, when Senator Lee went to Kuala Lumpur to study leadership with Barack Obama, I wonder if she signed with leave without pay, or if she was drawing her senatorial salary all the time she was off on her personal errand. I don't wonder very much, because I have a suspicion that I know the answer to that question. Senator Therese Terlahi also issued a statement saying, I support prompt payment of war claims, but I do not support passing any bill that we are not able to discuss or funding sources that we are not able to question. Guam Delegate Michael St. Nicholas had asked lawmakers to postpone action on the bill until his war claims correction bill passed the U.S. Senate. He has expressed concern that a rival war claims measure at the local level might interfere with the eventual passage of H.R. 1365 by the Senate. The substitute Bill 181 is very vague, said the congressman in a statement sent to the PNC. The government of Guam doesn't have enough money to pay everyone, and there's no statutory authority for the government to create a legally binding process to pay claimants. I just hope this action doesn't compromise H.R. 1365 at the finish line. And then Shirak Bhawani, policy advisor to Speaker Barnes, said the debate on Bill 181 occurred in August. So, you know, if you're going to vote on a bill in December, you debate it in August. I mean, you just let it go, and then you come back and vote on it in September and December, right? Occurred in August when the original version of 181 was discussed by lawmakers during a meeting of the Committee on the Whole. However, no debate took place on the revised version, which was introduced yesterday. The revised version lifts $7.5 million spending cap originally set on the payment of war claims. Under the revised version, on the day that Bill 181 is passed by the legislature, all claims that have been adjudicated by the Justice Department's Foreign Claims Settlement Commission will be paid out by the government of Guam. The number of adjudicated claims was $750 earlier this year. The number may have now risen to 1,000 or more. Bill 181 has not yet been put to a final vote. It has only been moved to the voting file. So let me explain what happened here. Yesterday, the legislature was called into session. There was no, the Committee on Rules had not set an agenda for yesterday's session. So the legislature was called into session without an agenda, which is the usual practice. A rumor was spread amongst the members that the only thing that was to be discussed was Bill 181. So legislature was called into session about an hour late, and one of the explanations was that the reason for the delay was that the Democrats were preparing a substitute Bill 181, and it wasn't ready to go, so they had to hold off starting the session. When the session started, the substitute was introduced, and a motion was made to adopt the substitute bill. There was there was some anger expressed when Tina would not allow any discussion on the motion. After that motion was swiftly passed, another motion was made to move the bill to adopt the motion, placing the bill on third reading, which means it's ready for voting now. So there was no discussion on the substitute bill at all. It was just ramrodded through by Speaker Tina Rose Munya Barnes. I guess Tina Rose the Hammer Barnes, because she just hammered it through. She would not allow any discussion and acted in a very dictatorial fashion from what I was able to find out. So I got Kellis here to comment on this matter. Good afternoon, Kellis.
Good afternoon, Bob. You know what? I think you're being a little hard on the speaker.
Okay.
I'm sure, because since she is a servant of the people, that she would not put anything forth that was not in the best interests of the peoples of Guam.
You think?
So I think that's what you need to understand. And so if we don't know what it is, it's just like, you know, when they put Obamacare through 26 million or whatever pages, they said, we will read it after we sign it. So this is what we should do, Bob. I don't know why you're being so hard, because I'm sure that she has the best interest of the peoples of Guam, and she wouldn't put anything forth that was not acceptable by everybody.
And I suspected if we were to ask her, that's exactly what she would tell us. But you know, Kellis, I said at the beginning of the program, when I read the feel-good editorial by the Post, I'm not one to give anybody in public life the benefit of the doubt. Meaning, if the facts don't sound right, I ain't going to go along with it. I hear what you're saying.
Okay, I got another call. I got to take it. I'm sorry, I wanted to stay on, but I got to take this. Bye.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so very, very good, Kellis. Kellis shows that I'm not the only one that can look at this and turn on the sarcastic lamp while we're talking about it. Okay, now I've got a Joe on the line, and this is not you, is it, real Joe Cruz? This must be another Joe. Correct? Real Joe Cruz, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Okay, another Joe. What can you tell me about Tina and the bill?
Well, Uncle Bob, this is just one of the plays from Nancy Pelosi's playbook. You got to pass it to know what's in it, right?
We've got to pass it to find out what's in it. Yeah.
That's the only way, right?
Yeah. Well, in this case, of course, Tina knows exactly what's in it. But you're right. I appreciate yours and Kellis's take on this.
But okay, Bob. Here's the take on it, right? As long as we understand that they're playing. I can't think of the expression now when they got you following a string, and they keep pulling it, and you keep following the string. But as long as we know that's what they're doing, and as long as everyone is saying, hey, pay attention to that Pelosi, or pay attention to that Munya Barnes, because she's stringing us along, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't it be kind of more for the benefit of the opposition, because they don't really, we already know their playbook. You know what I'm saying? As long as we know their playbook, what's the expression? The devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't.
The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, goodbye. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, another Joe. That was another Joe. It was another Joe. Yeah. Okay, so Tina just ramrodded this bill through, and as a general principle, the way the legislature works, we have a 3-reading requirement. First reading occurs when the bill is introduced. We used to read, once upon a time, when a bill was introduced, the clerk would read all the titles. We don't do that anymore. Then the bill goes to second reading, and when it's on second reading, it's on the agenda, and someone will make a motion to move it to the third reading. And the debate then occurs on the motion to move the bill to third reading. That's where all of the discussion comes in. But when the motion was made to accept the substitute bill and then to move it to third reading, and Tina did not allow any discussion at all, this is a real break from the way the legislature really operates. She had the votes. She had her 8 votes. She had the gavel, and it was mind over matter. She didn't mind, and the 5 people that were opposed to the action she took did not matter. They were inconsequential. So this was, from what I've been able to gather, a rather tyrannical approach on the part of the Speaker. And you know the old one about those who don't remember the lessons of history are doomed to repeat them? Well, you go back a few years, and Tina was part of the Wonpat 10. And Speaker Wonpat showed us what a speaker could do if they really wanted to. They could take a bill that was sent over by Ray Tenorio, and no public hearing, put that on the agenda and pass it in about an hour and give themselves huge retroactive raises. And it worked for a while, but it cost a lot of them, including Tina, her seat. A lot of senators lost. So I wonder if Tina is familiar with that phrase, if you don't remember the lessons of history, you're doomed to repeat them. You may be repeating that same lesson again, Tina. So you lost, you've lost re-election a couple of times. Maybe you're going for a hat trick on losing elections, because this was a pretty dismal performance. And as Ray said on his show this morning, the optics just aren't good. Ray went into this a little bit this morning, and he had Tello Taitigui as a caller, Senator Tello. And Tello was very, I don't know if I would use the word angry, but Tello took great exception to the way Tina handled herself. And she talked in terms of impeaching Tina. I suspect if Tello thought about it a little bit, what she really means is recall, because we don't impeach members of this. We don't impeach members of our legislature. We don't impeach members of the U.S. Senate or the House of Representatives. But we do recall members of the legislature. Maybe that's what Tello's thinking. Okay, short break here, and then we'll be heading into the big halftime show very shortly. And I'll come back to Tello versus Tina in just a minute.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Calaguan Hapa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
GRMC's cardiology department treats most complex heart problems. In our catheterization lab, cardiologists use imaging equipment to treat clogged arteries that can cause heart attacks or heart failure. We perform balloon angioplasty, stenting, and other life-saving cardiac procedures. If you suffer from a heart condition, have your provider refer you to GRMC's cardiology clinic at 645-5500. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So, yeah, Tina acted in a rather tyrannical fashion, and I noticed that even a couple of Democrats were not too happy. For instance, Therese Terlahi took a strong issue with Tina's parliamentary approach. I should put the word parliamentary in quotation marks, because it's the legislature is a, quote, deliberative body. It deliberates on its decisions. If you just want arbitrary, capricious, off-the-cuff decisions, you don't need 15 people for that. You could find one person who could do it quite handily, and it wouldn't cost as much. So when the substitute bill went to third reading, which means it'll probably be voted on today, and no one had the opportunity to examine the changes, question the changes, perhaps call for a committee of the whole to examine the financial aspects of it, this is not going to sit right with anybody. It certainly doesn't sit right with legislative watchers like me who have been watching the legislature all the way since the 7th Guam legislature and have some idea of how things should go, so that even those who wind up on the losing end of a proposition don't walk away as though someone had stuck a stick in their eye, which is the way Tina left this one. So I was able to get the substitute bill. No one had it at the time that the bill, at the legislature was called to order. It was passed out on the floor. Talk about a deliberative body. Let's plan ahead. No, let's just make it up as we go along. It's more fun, etc. So I have the substitute bill 181 here, and I was not too kind with my comments with yesterday's Bill 181. The substitute is even worse. Now, subsection the bill enacts a new Article 13 in Title V, as you were, new Article 13 to Chapter 1 in Title V. And that consists of a single section, 11301, that has 6 subsections. In the bill as introduced, there was a subsection C that read like this: Any funds transferred to this account shall be used only to award compensable Guam victims, etc., and shall be consistent with a memorandum of agreement between the Department of Administration and the U.S. Department of the Treasury. This subsection C says the governor is authorized to transfer such sums as are available from the general fund to pay adjudicated claims as of the passage of this measure from the general fund appropriations, etc. So what is the language, the passage of this measure mean? Does that mean when 8 senators vote for it? Does it mean when the governor signs it? Well, as a general principle, that's what it would mean, when the governor signs it. Except there's a kicker in this bill, a new Section 3 called effective date. This act shall become effective upon the execution of a memorandum of understanding, etc., etc. So does the passage of the bill mean the same thing as the effective date? And if so, why didn't they use the same language? Because it could be read that the governor's transfer authority begins at the time the governor signs the bill, and she could transfer sums available from the general fund to pay adjudicated claims. So if the bill passed becomes law on Monday, she could start transferring them, and it may take 6 months for that memorandum to be complied with. Possibility, nice way to start saving up some money, right? So rule number 1, when you're drafting bills, be consistent with your vocabulary. Don't use happy in the first paragraph and glad in the second paragraph. Language you use should have the same meaning throughout the bill. And of course, this bill has the obligatory severability clause in it, which once again shows me who's ever doing this stuff at legislature doesn't know what they are doing. The last thing anyone in the legislature should want would be to have one section of this bill fall and the rest of it stand. Because the way it's put together, poorly as it's put together, if it doesn't all stand, it's going to create some really strange consequences. So the last thing you'd want to do would be to give any court any excuse to sever any portion of this bill. So Section C, Section C read, the governor is authorized to transfer a sum not to exceed $7.5 million from the general fund, from general fund appropriations contained within Public Law 34-116 for the purposes outlined in subsection D. And I read you the new subsection C. The first one says up to $7.5 million. The second one doesn't have any limitation at all. So could you see why senators who were paying attention when they had the speed readers amongst them, the ones that could read really fast before Tina got this into third reading, could you see why they might say, hey, hold on, who's going to pay for this and where's the money going to come from? This is irresponsible to pass a bill like this that gives the governor open-ended authority to transfer funds. Okay, so we've still got a lot more to talk about here. Tina the autocrat, Tello versus Tina. We got a break for that big halftime show that we all enjoy so much. So I'll be back in 5 or 6 minutes.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Deep divides over impeachment. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. The House vote to impeach President Trump shows how deeply the partisan divide is in Washington. All but 3 Democrats voted for the articles. Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
I could not be prouder or more inspired than by the moral courage of the House Democrats.
No Republican voted to support it. Congressman Kevin McCarthy.
He is president today. He'll be president tomorrow. And he will be president when this impeachment is over.
The House impeached the president for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress related to his dealings with Ukraine, making him only the 3rd U.S. president to be formally impeached. Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, with White House staff reaction.
I don't think anybody is surprised today. I think the day is solemn and sad, but not quite the way that the Democrats and Speaker Pelosi are describing it. I think it's a sad, solemn day because it never should happen.
Conway speaking Wednesday before President Trump departed for his rally in Michigan, where he told the crowd,
"By the way, it doesn't really feel like we're being impeached, do you? The country is doing better than ever before. We did nothing wrong."
Next, it's up to the Republican-controlled Senate to hold an impeachment trial, likely in January, and likely one that will not remove him from office. A federal appeals court rules a central feature of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, is unconstitutional, but it ordered a trial judge to reconsider a ruling that invalidated the entire 2010 health care law. Asian stocks head lower after the impeachment, but U.S. stocks ended mixed on Wednesday. The Nasdaq posting a record high. The Dow fell 27 points. The S&P 500 lost 1. America's listening to Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
We buy a homeowner's policy and never give it another thought until something happens. Life brings changes, and our coverage needs can change. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
I'm a working mom and could really use more hours in my day. Thankfully, my non-electric Kinetico water treatment system has simplified my life. It's easier to clean my home with Kinetico conditioned water. No more scrubbing tubs or wiping water spots. Cleaners work better and last longer. And all the Kinetico drinking water we want is right here. No more lugging home bottled water. All this, and I'm saving money too, thanks to Kinetico.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
A huge haul of seized cocaine lands in California.
A series of seaborne raids by the Navy, Coast Guard, and international partners has resulted in the seizure of about 9 tons of cocaine in the eastern Pacific Ocean. Coast Guard Vice Admiral Linda Fagan says the cocaine was seized from smugglers during interdictions by the crews of 5 cutters over a 6-week period.
This is hard, dangerous work for these crews.
The street value of the cocaine is estimated at $312 million. More counter-drug operations are currently underway. Rich Dennison, Fox News.
A United Nations spokesperson says much remains to be done after a study finds sexual abuse by personnel in Haiti.
Food is scarce in the grief and disaster-stricken nation. Now a new study by 2 universities finds that UN peacekeepers took advantage of their detail in Haiti. Interviewing 2,500 Haitians, a study found more than 10% of them were impregnated by UN personnel, which have had a strong presence following a major earthquake in 2010. Some were violent or consensual, but the study finds that most of the affairs were, quote, transactional in nature, meaning the peacekeepers exchanged a meal for sex with women and girls as young as 11. Once matters became public, the UN would allegedly repatriate the peacekeeper. Locals claim the mothers were, quote, left in misery to raise their children alone. Kevin Battle, Fox News.
The Virginia high school football coach who inspired the movie Remember the Titans has died. Herman Boone guided T.C. Williams High School to a state championship in 1971 while navigating the early days of desegregation. Actor Denzel Washington brought Boone's grit and determination to life in the 2000 film.
We leave for camp, Gettysburg College, August 15th, 7:29 a.m. If you report at 7:30, you will not be playing football this season. You will be watching.
Boone died Wednesday. He was 84. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
A diamond ring turns into a black pearl and hangs shimmering in the sky.
Join 93.3 The Point for a spectacular celestial event. On the evening of December 26th, a rare solar eclipse will take place just before sunset.
We see the sun's atmosphere, normally not visible.
Most of the sun will be blocked during the eclipse, leaving only a ring of fire visible, and we have the best seats and the safest way to watch it.
It's one of the great wonders of the solar system.
Join us at the Point Coffee Lounge at the Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort from 4 to 6 p.m. on December 26th. The first 100 guests will receive a pair of Eclipse viewing glasses, a complimentary glass of iced tea, and a coupon good for discounts at Sheraton's Surfers Point Bar or La Cascada Buffet Restaurant. Join us for the Point's 2019 Eclipse Viewing Party, December 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the beautiful Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort. Brought to you in part by Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort, Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, and your sky-watching friends at 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are back after that big halftime show we've been enjoying up until now. I got a call coming in. The real Joe Cruz is out of the room just temporarily, so hang on there, caller, and the real Joe will pick up the phone in just a moment, I'm sure. Yeah, well, maybe call back in just a second or two. So going back to Tina's masterpiece here. Yeah, he's back, so I'm sure he'll pick up that phone for you right now. Okay. So Tina's masterpiece, Bill 181, took the substitute bill is open-ended, and it allows Lou to transfer as much as she wants to from 34-116 and Public Law 35-36, which I think is the budget. No caps, and I could understand why any serious senator would not want to vote for a bill like that unless there were some clarification and perhaps the opportunity to amend the bill to put some limitations on it. Didn't happen. Then I mentioned yesterday that the language in subsection D is a joke, because it says any funds transferred shall be consistent under a memorandum of agreement between the Department of Administration and the U.S. Department of Treasury. And I hypothesize that probably the folks with a sense of humor back at the Department of Treasury, if they knew about this bill, would take this and pin it on the bulletin board by the water cooler where they pin funny cartoons, because it's a laugh to think that anyone in the United States Department of Treasury is going to negotiate with someone called Department of Administration. The Department of Administration does not have legal capacity to enter into anything. Perhaps the Director of Administration does, but certainly not the department. And then as far as the U.S. Treasury is concerned, I would think that would be the Secretary of Treasury that would enter into such agreements, or some other named official that has the authority to bind the Department of Treasury in such an undertaking. So that's the way the original bill was drafted. Now the new bill keeps that same flawed language as in the old bill. And this is one good reason to allow for discussion on the floor, because oftentimes mistakes like this can be spotted on the floor, and even someone who might not be in favor of the bill might come along and say, hey, let's fix this. It's an embarrassment. It would be an embarrassment if we passed something like this with such a glaring error in it. So, Tina, that's a good reason to allow for discussion. So I'm going to stop here for a second and see what Chris can tell me about Bill 181. Hello, Chris.
Happy day, Bob. How are you?
Hey, pretty good, Chris.
So I was listening earlier and following along on this, but I heard you, once again use one of your sayings and in making talking about the new environment of politically correct pronouns, and you said using politically correct pronouns, and I was just going to give maybe one word of advice. When you say using politically correct pronouns, don't use it as don't ever involve an acronym, because that would sound like using PCP.
So don't use an acronym, huh, Chris?
Yeah, just an attempt at a little bit of humor. But, nowadays, sometimes when you see some of the activities, you wonder. I was thinking, just because I know that you've been involved in constructing, and I've gone over a number of times, basically the House rules, and I was wondering, I seem to remember, if this is contained within the current rules, standing rules, that if there are substantive changes to a bill, it would require a public hearing.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it is in the rules. If it isn't, it should be. Mm-hmm. And I would think that a conscientious senator would make that motion if it weren't in the rules, because it makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Correct. Because I was wondering once again, and I know that this has been debated before. I don't remember in any of my time, I don't remember a bill being shot down to the third. I may have happened, but I don't remember it. This is the first for me. And so what I was wondering, if that were in the current standing rules, would that then mean that this bill would be ineligible for voting because it hasn't been properly read?
Well, if you're asking, could there be a challenge to a law enacted in that manner, Chris? Is that what you're asking?
Either a challenge to law enacted in that manner, or I really think one of the loyal opposition really, other than just rising to a motion of reconsidering the actions of the body, should basically state that if that's in the standing rules, this bill should be ineligible by the House rules for voting on, because it has not satisfied a proper reading.
That's true, but of course, when we're talking internal rules in the legislature, kind of the most powerful rule of all is a majority of the members can do pretty much whatever they want to, and there's no mechanism to stop. For instance, in this situation, a senator would not be able to get a judge to enter an injunction against the legislature proceeding.
Right.
For violating the standing rules. That wouldn't happen. And if this bill were passed and signed by the governor, a challenge to the legality of the bill wouldn't lie either, because a court is not going to look behind the four corners of an improperly enrolled bill. So it's the biggest loss, I think, for Tina here is going to be in the court of public opinion, because there may be people who are anxious about the war claims but are saying, hey, we don't need this kind of stuff.
I agree, but I still would really like to see someone once again challenge the chair on this, and especially if, and I would anticipate that they continue to maintain in their standing rules that any substantive change would require a public hearing. And that's why I agree with at least Senator Teresa Lahi's motion to at least go to committee of the whole for the purposes of the establishing the funding source and other possible discrepancies as you've enumerated in the bill, but also just for the purpose of saying, well, if you didn't at least push it back to committee and have a public hearing so that could, that issue could be debated and the public could understand it.
Yeah.
At least the committee of the whole put the information out so that people understand exactly what the legislature is voting on. I have one more thing, Bob, I take a little bit of offense, and I know some of it's theater, when members rise to kind of draw out and make an impassioned speech on the emotional side of this issue, as if all of us who are trying to advocate for proper procedure and talk about where funding sources come from to be able to spend the people's money, that anybody who opposes, bad government or bad legislation is against Manamku. I think that's just, I really get put off and kind of irritated on that. I think that's just it's a cheap shot, really. And the reason why I say that is because we know that other than the fix that our congressman is trying to get through, which is to fix the flawed legislation as originally passed to be able to pay out the adjudicated claims, the account is accumulating the balances. I believe that's upwards of 10, maybe even up to $15 million now.
20 million, Chris.
20 million, Bob. And the fact of the matter is, what we're really talking about here is the money's in the bank, in the Treasury. The congressman is trying to really smoothly pass this thing so that can be released immediately and not have an effect on our Treasury and convolute the situation. And I don't think any of that constitutes any individual who is against Manamku.
Well, Chris, the phenomenon you describe as a name, it's called demagoguery. A demagogue is one who would stand up and speak out and not appeal to reason, but appeal only to emotion to achieve a particular result. So, pandering to the Manamku, criticizing people for being against the Manamku, it's lower than a cheap shot in my mind, and it's certainly not what I would hope for from the members of our legislature.
I agree with you, and I think it's more of a productive conversation to continue to talk about the efforts currently underway in Congress, notwithstanding how you may feel about the congressman, but the efforts in Congress and the fact that the bank account that exists for this purpose is continuing to accumulate the proper funds. In fact, I think at last check it was not even past 8 million of adjudicated claims at this point. Maybe it's further along now. So you got double plus the money in the bank when this thing is passed by Congress to immediately disperse those funds as per adjudicated claims. And so this is not anybody standing in the way of paying the Manamku. This is talking about good government, proper use of funds, and not raiding a treasury that's already inadequate to provide the basic services as it exists.
I agree 100%, Chris. You're right on the point, as usual.
Thanks, Bob. Have a great afternoon. Nice show.
Thanks for calling. So, Chris mentions the demagoguery involved when a senator would stand up and make the statement that, well, we have to pass this because anybody who doesn't want this doesn't want to see the Manamku get the money. And that's called demagoguery. That means attempting to prevail on people's emotions rather than their reason. We would expect a little bit of reasonableness at the legislature. So I was talking about the flawed language in the bill as introduced, where there's a contemplation here of a memorandum of agreement between the deputy mayor of Malolo and the chief of police of the capital. No, it's worse than that. Between the Department of Administration, Guam Department of Administration, and the U.S. Department of Treasury, You can't make this stuff up. I'm really reading this from a bill. So Tina Rose actually initiated a bill that has this language in it. Then the substitute bill has this section, Section 3, the effective date, which I touched upon a moment ago. And it says, this act shall become effective upon the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the United States government and the government of Guam. Well, that's a little bit better because the United States government is capable of entering into memoranda of understanding. I don't think that that's the term that would be used. And so is the government of Guam. I would have thought that a better way to do this, instead of saying the government of Guam, would have been to say the governor. And the way this is worded, it's sort of permissive, but it's not an authorization. So if you want the governor to do something, you can't direct him to do something in a bill, in a law, because of the separation of powers. But what you can say is that the governor is authorized to enter into a binding agreement with officials of the United States government, including the Treasury Department, which sets out the administrative process, etc. So something this important, one would think that a lot of attention would be paid to getting it exactly right, and not throw out, let's have the Department of Administration agree with some dude back in D.C., some dudes back in D.C. But this section says, the act shall become effective upon the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the United States government and the government of Guam, which sets out the administrative process that must be adhered to for the government of Guam to pay awards, provided that this memorandum must be filed with the legislature prior to any funds being transferred for payment of claims. I'll take that back to the earlier section of this bill, which talks about the passage of the bill. And then, this is what it says. The administrative process that must be adhered to by the government of Guam to pay awards. So there's going to be an agreement that the government of Guam must comply with in order to pay awards out of our own money. That's what this says. So we'll enter into an agreement with the Department of Treasury, and that agreement will say what we've got to do to pay out of our own money. Now, what they're trying to do here, and I would suggest that they throw away their fat crayon and at least try to type this up on a word processor. What they're trying to do is this. They're trying to enter into an agreement with the proper officials at the Treasury Department that says that if the government of Guam pays out cash to a claimant on an adjudicated claim, the amount of that award would be reimbursed to the government of Guam. Because the way things are set up now, if you are a claimant, you have an adjudicated claim that says you get 10 grand. When the technical problem is fixed, if it's ever fixed, when the technical problem is fixed, you'll get a check from the United States Treasury, and you can do with it what you want. But what Tina and Lou are trying to do is they're trying to set something up so that they could raid the general fund, pay war claimants whose claims have been approved, and then have the Treasury reimburse the government of Guam instead of paying the claimant. Again, that's what they're trying to do. But you would never know that from reading this fouled up language in this bill. So I suppose, in a way, I could understand why Tina didn't want this bill to go out for a discussion. Perhaps, if for no other reason, to avoid the embarrassment would arise if somebody who took the time to read the bill came up and said and pointed out the same things that to me are so plain that they cannot be avoided by anyone who can read. So I could understand that. Now, of course, there are two other really good reasons why Tina wanted to ramrod this through. Two really good reasons. One, obviously, they've got to get this through before the Senate approves San Nicolas's bill. Because if the Senate approves San Nicolas's bill, then this whole thing becomes moot. And they aren't going to be able to claim any credit at all. So they've got to get it through before San Nicolas's bill passes. That gives them the opportunity to go out and say, utsagi na no formalik na I bill para I work claims para manamku. So they'd be able to go to every senior citizen center and pander to the old folks, and they could use it as a campaign platform. We really did what we could to help the Manamku. San Nicolas couldn't do it, so we introduced a local bill to do it. Vote for us. So that's one reason they'd want to do it. And then the second reason is that if they didn't ramrod it through yesterday and vote on it today and get it to Lou tomorrow, they're not going to be able to have the bill signing ceremony before Christmas. So, of course, I understand why Tina had to ramrod it through. Can't you imagine the setting? Government House, a Christmas tree, a crowd of superannuated citizens sitting around with Lou drinking perhaps eggnog as Lou makes some very touching remarks to how much we love the Manamku and how bad we feel for them about their suffering. And then that's why I asked Tina Rose Munya Barnes to introduce this bill so that we could get that money in your hands as soon as possible. And these are the reasons we did it. And now I'm going to sign this bill. A little round of applause there, Real Joe Cruz. I'm going to sign. Hooray! Hooray for Lou! Hooray for Governor Lou! Hooray for Tina! Hooray for Tina! They're looking out for the Manamku. So, of course, Tina had to ramrod it through. What good would it do to take a deliberate approach and fix some of these stupid problems in the bill and not get it passed by Christmas? Or even worse, to not get it passed before the Senate approves Mike San Nicolas's fix. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt on that one. Now, I mean, you should really be able to understand what the hurry was here. It should all become very clear now. It's all about Christmas and who gets to take the victory lap. So, let me just take a peek at my Facebook comments here before I go. We're going to go from the we're going to go from Oz back to Samoa. And let's see what we got for comments here. Therese versus Tina. How could this be? Didn't they sign a pledge of unity, agreeing to support each other no matter what cause? This is from Ishmael. But it seems Theresa's conscience saw Bill 181's flaws, but the speaker would not be quiet. It is something she cannot do. The speaker just kept talking until her face turned blue. But why pass a bill that only supports the few? It's probably because the speaker just doesn't have a clue. She doesn't play well with others, and agreements she just can't reach. So this year we should, ask Dear Santa for Christmas, Tina impeach. So Ishmael has turned into a real poet here. Denise Legaspi, maybe that's why Obama stopped here and the legislature is doing the Me Too syndrome. And let's see what else I got here. Pam Tuval says Tello was ticked off. And Denise says the Democrats believe that the people are stupid. Okay, we're coming up on the 7th inning stretch here. I'm going to spend a little more time with Facebook and then go back to American Samoa.
Hop a day. This is Melanie Mendiola.
And this is Ricky Hernandez. We're with the Guam Economic Development Authority.
And we're both alumni of the University of Guam. We're calling on our fellow alumni to make an investment in Guam's future by contributing to the G is for Giving campaign. With your donation, you are giving more students the opportunity to graduate, making Guam a better place.
To make a tax-deductible donation, log on to give.uog.edu before December 31st or call 735-2957 for more information.
Viva UOG!
Are you left-brained or right-brained? And what percentage of your brain do you actually use? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll explore some myths about the brain that most of us have accepted as truth. Or are they true?
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by American Water Tech. Now through December 31st, you can save almost $900 on a complete Kinetico non-electric reverse osmosis drinking water system for your home. Call American Water Tech at 649-2301 to find out more information. American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Here we are in Chicago, the Windy City. Center field bleachers, Wrigley Field for the 7th inning stretch. And in just a minute, we're going to fly down to Pago Pago, American Samoa. But I got one more comment here on Facebook dealing with Bill 181, which is Tina's masterpiece. You know, perhaps this would be what Tina is remembered for, Bill 181. And Bill Fritton says, has Tina ever written a non-fatally flawed bill? Good question. And then he says, how did she ever become speaker? Well, I watched that kind of carefully the rise of Tina. You know, Tina is a two-time loser. She has run for re-election and lost twice. But this time she managed to come back into the legislature, and because B.J. Cruz, the speaker, resigned to become the public auditor, the speakership was vacant. Therese Terlahi had been chosen by her brethren. Woo. Brethren used to mean people of both sexes, right? By the other members to be vice speaker. Therese ratcheted up to the position of acting speaker after BJ left. So I think a lot of folks thought that when the 35th was sworn in, Democrat majority, Therese had been the acting speaker. Therese was legislative counsel for years, and a legislative counsel is the lawyer for the legislature, the one that's is to make sure that the bills are properly drafted, assists in the engrossing and enrolling of bills, is the legislature's parliamentarian, et cetera, provides the legal services for the legislature. So given that she'd been the acting speaker, I think an awful lot of folks just said, well, your common sense would tell you that Therese ought to be the speaker. I didn't say that. You know, I glanced in my crystal ball. And I said, I don't think so. And my crystal ball told me it was going to be Tina. And the reason that my crystal ball told me that it was going to be Tina was not because Tina was more qualified than Therese, which is certainly not the case, but that Tina would be much more favorable to Lulian Guerrero, who at the beginning of this legislature apparently had a fair amount of ability to call the shots in the legislature. I think a lot of that, she's thrown a lot of that away, but apparently she had a lot of power at the time. And Therese would have been seen as too much of a maverick. Therese has a mind of her own, and she's not going to go along with a party line just because it's a party line. So my prediction was Therese probably would not be the speaker. Tina probably would. So we saw the phenomenon of someone coming in off the street, not having a long term of incumbency, go from a second, a second round of being a rookie to being the speaker. And I wonder if anybody now, any of the Democrats now have buyer's remorse to see how Tina has handled that position now that she has it. But I hope that answers your question, Bill. I'm peeking at another post here from Elwin Champaco Quitano. There is a belief that if you surround yourself with supposed strategists such as Carlo Branch or Carlo B. and Francis S., I think I know who that is, things would be advantageous, but rather the castle is crumbling as the fools dance about. Very interesting. Well, I have phrased it a little differently, Elwin. I think we probably are observing the same the same phenomenon, but perhaps ascribing different reasons for it. My analysis is that Lou's in over her head. Being in charge of the government of Guam is a tough job. It perhaps requires experience in being in charge of other large organizations before ascending to the throne of the government of Guam. And Lou's made some bad decisions. She said some really stupid things like, how long do you think the 5% gross receipts tax should last, Governor? And Lou says, forever. And the people that she surrounded herself with, maybe not the best, maybe not ready to suit up for the next All-Star game. Without going into it too deeply, we just saw the de-Brennanization of the government of Guam. And the suspicion is that, wow, some of the chatter was, wow, I thought that group really worked hard to get Lou elected. And now both of the Brennan girls are out. I wonder what's going on. So anyhow, Elwin and what was the gentleman's name? Bill Fritton. That's my comment on those matters. Okay, now we go back to American. Actually, I had a friend tell me that it's not Samoa, it's Samoa. Samoa. So I'm going to start pronouncing it that way. You'll recall that this all began when a district court judge in Utah ruled that people born in American Samoa are United States citizens by birth, in a manner similar to the way a person born in Guam is a United States citizen by birth. But in the case of Samoa, for a different reason, and the reason is this, that Section 1 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution reads like this: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So according to the district judge in Utah, born in the United States means born in one of the 50, born in the District of Columbia, or born in any one of the territories of the United States. That would be Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, the Commonwealth of Northern Marianas, Territory of Guam, and American Samoa. So if you were born in any one of those 5 places, even if Congress had not made you citizens by birth, the first sentence of the 14th Amendment does. That was his holding. So when people in American Samoa all of a sudden are U.S. citizens. Now, just a footnote here. The judge in Utah stayed the application of his decision pending appeal because it's pretty clear that the United States will take an appeal of this case to the U.S. Circuit Court for the 10th Circuit. And pending a decision there, the judge's decision won't be law, so to speak. But the interesting thing here is that the folks in American Samoa are not very happy about this. The government of American Samoa filed a motion to intervene in this case, and they didn't want to intervene on the side of the plaintiffs, 3 people from Samoa. They wanted to intervene on the side of the defendants, the United States, because they didn't want to become United States citizens at birth. Little explanation here. A person from American Samoa is a national of the United States, not a citizen. So he gets to carry a United States passport, and if he checks in at the United States consulate in Beirut and has a problem that a consular officer can help him with, he'll be entitled to U.S. consular services. With that passport, he can travel from anywhere in the world into the United States and be welcomed with open arms by a Customs and Border Protection officer. But there will be extra language in his passport that says this person is a U.S. national, not a United States citizen. So when it comes time to vote in state elections where citizenship is required, which is now all of the states, but it hasn't always been that way, that American Samoan national will not be able to vote. And there are some jobs in the United States government for which citizenship is a requirement. So a national would not be able to hold those jobs. If the Samoan wanted to enlist in the armed forces, he can do that as a national. And if the opportunity came along for him to go to OCS or take a direct commission or something like that, he can't. Because right now you have to be a U.S. citizen to be an officer in the United States Armed Forces. If an American Samoan wanted to become a United States citizen, he would have to go to the United States, physically located in the United States, stay there, stay in the United States for 90 days, keep his nose clean, and apply for naturalization. Pay a fee, fill out some forms, take a test, and he could become a United States citizen. Ordinarily, naturalization requires 5 years as a permanent resident. So it's pretty easy for a citizen of Samoa to become a citizen of the United States. Okay, I noticed that the Real Joe Cruz opened the Jimmy line here, so we're going to take a minute to chat with Jimmy, and then I'm going to come back to Samoa. Howdy, Jimmy.
Yeah, okay. If I was born in the South Pacific on the Samoan Islands, now what would the best way for me to be to get some more money?
To get Samoa, you know why there are.
I need some more money.
Do you know why there are
some food stamps?
Hey, Jimmy, you know why there are so few people in Samoa?
They went somewhere else?
No, because it's too hot for Samoa.
Okay. Anyway, sorry to bother you. But you could just tell me how to get some more money.
Well, living in American Samoa, you're entitled to all of the bennies that come with living just about anywhere else in the United States. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. In case you wanted to move to American Samoa.
Yes. Well, I'll contemplate that tomorrow.
I don't think the talk radio is as good in Americans. I suspect part of my international radio listening audience is located there, but I don't think the homegrown talk radio is as good.
Get some media to open a radio station down there.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty happy right here at the point, Jimmy.
Okay. So,
thanks for calling, Jimmy. So, so it's possible and relatively easy for a citizen or for a national from Samoa to become a United States citizen, but right now, American Samoa does not have the same government structure as other jurisdictions in the United States. It has a bicameral legislature, and the upper house of the legislature is not popularly elected. The Samoan culture, often referred to as Fa'a Samoa, recognizes chiefs that are called matais. And that chieftain is tied indirectly to land tenure in American Samoa. If you wanted to go down and start a gas station in Pongo Pongo and you saw a nice street corner, unlike the United States, you wouldn't be able to approach the owner of that street corner. And if you could cut a deal, you give him money, he signs the land over. It doesn't work that way in Samoa, because land tenure is tied up into clans and matais. And that whole system of matais, either serving in the upper house or naming the members of the upper house, would not pass constitutional muster under the United States Constitution. So the fear of the people in American Samoa is that if they were citizens at birth, their whole entire cultural apple cart would be upset, and they wouldn't be able to govern themselves in a way that they've been doing for like 4,000 years in accordance with Fa'a Samoa. So that's why they're against it. And they're pretty happy with the situation as it is. In 1900, the chiefs of Samoa asked the United States, hey, can you guys come in and take us over and rule us? And the United States did. It didn't get around to a formal annexation statute until 1930. But American Samoans have been pretty happy under the American flag all this time, have an extremely high enlistment rate in the United States Armed Forces. And if you're a football fan, you know the best way to wind up with a job in the National Football League is to be born in Samoa, because there are more American Samoans in the National Football League than just about any other kind of folks. So when this decision came down, the folks in American Samoa were not happy at all. I had an interesting comment here from Peter Santos when this all happened. And I mentioned that Neil Weir has a nonprofit organization that goes around tilting at these kinds of windmills, and it was Neil Weir's clients that prevailed in this case. So Neil Weir, I'm sure, is taking his victory lap. And when I went into it and mentioned that the folks in Samoa weren't real happy, Peter Santos said that Neil Weir has a case of saviorism, going in and doing things for people without asking them if that's what they really want, and perhaps putting them in a very awkward situation because of your attempt to do good for them. So I have a letter here from the representative of American Samoa to the U.S. House of Representatives. Samoa has a non-voting delegate just like we do. And I mentioned that the irony here is that it's conceivable that the non-voting delegate from American Samoa to the United States Congress might someday not be a United States citizen. Possible. So here's what Representative Amata Coleman Radewagen, and by the way, if the name Coleman sounds familiar, it should, because her father was Peter Coleman, a Samoan, who at one time was the Deputy High Commissioner of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. He was also the district administrator for a couple of districts in the old Trust Territory. Amata herself got her bachelor's degree from the University of Guam. So a certain amount of familiarity here between Amata and us folks living here in Guam. And here's what she said. We are disappointed by the opinion of the Utah Federal Court in the Fatisi-Mano case. It will certainly come as a surprise to tens of thousands of American Samoans that a federal judge in Utah has ruled that they are now United States citizens. Because the residents of American Samoa have vibrant democratic processes and already had a path to citizenship that I worked to make even more accessible, the ruling is particularly unwelcome and inappropriate. Okay, I got to take a break here. I want to finish up with Amata's letter. And then, is this a different Joe or another Joe?
Another Joe.
It's not a different Joe, it's another Joe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so another Joe. I'm going to finish up with Amata's letter, and then you're going to have the opportunity to close out this episode of Tall Tales. Wow.
Want to grow your business? Start a new venture? Or stay ahead of the competition? You can. With Docomo Pacific Smart Business Solutions tailored to your specific needs and ambitions, you can do it all. Partner with a network with best-in-class network coverage, state-of-the-art communication platforms, and a team dedicated to providing you with premium support. Call 688-2677 to start your journey to success today. Docomo Pacific Business, delivering your future today.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your fix every day with the Points NFL Pick'em contest. Get the latest updates as we check out the past week's performance and break down the upcoming action. Get your game on by calling the hotline at 888-TALK or sound off on Facebook Live at thepoint.gu. League members get a chance to win some awesome weekly prizes with a shot for your choice of a new GTA phone. The NFL Pick'em contest is brought to you by Current Guam with special thanks to GTA.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So from Samoa, we take a quick trip to Louisville, Kentucky, to Churchill Downs for the call to the post at Churchill Downs. Having witnessed that, having watched the horses tear out of the starting gate, we're going to go back to American Samoa for a few minutes, and then we're going to entertain another Joe. So picking up with Amata's letter, she said the Utah federal judge's ruling is literally without precedent. It reaches the opposite conclusion from that of distinguished judges on the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. Unfortunately, the ruling did not address the concerns we had raised about the rights of the American Samoan people to decide their own status, both as individuals and as a people. I have faith that God has the best for our Samoan people in mind and will work all things together for good. While there is room for American Samoans to have different opinions about whether to seek United States citizenship, there are deep concerns about having a distant federal judge decide these issues. The people of American Samoa have the most ancient culture in the islands of the Pacific, and it is integrally connected to the unique indigenous practices embodied in Fa'a Samoa, our Samoan way of life, its land tenure and Matai systems that have been handed down proudly through the generations. We are committed to the preservation of Fa'a Samoa, and we intend to appeal this ruling, even as we work to make sure that a path to individual citizenship is available and accessible to all American Samoans who choose to pursue it. I will keep our people apprised in every way I can and continue to be guided by the wishes of those I directly represent in the islands in working with Governor Lolo Maliga and Attorney General Taluega Elisalo Ale. So that's the word from Samoa. You know, Neil Weir, don't do us any more favors. Because your three folks could become American Samoans relatively easily. He doesn't have to drag the entire island of Tutuila with him, and to a result that they don't want. So I think that's probably the last time we'll be talking. We'll be visiting Samoa until that case reaches the Circuit Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit. It's probably going to be a couple years, so don't hold your breath for that one. Okay, with no further ado, I now entertain another Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Uncle Bob. So I think the first question I have is American Samoa technically a colony of the United States?
Yes, it is, but with an explanation, okay?
Okay.
The word the word colony is a word that we hardly ever used up until about 20 years ago. We used to talk about the 13 colonies that became the United States, British colonies on the shores of North America, right?
Okay.
And we all knew that Hong Kong was a colony it's actually a British crown colony, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so we knew what the word colony meant. But in those days, you didn't have to wash out your mouth after you said the word colony, because in those days, the word colony was not a dirty word. And nowadays, referring to something as a colony means this is really bad. You know, a colony is really bad, and the colonizer is really an evil country to have these colonies. So
Samoa wants America to Uncle Sam to be their to colonize, but they don't want. It's kind of a wink, wink, hush, hush. We're your colony, but don't say that, right?
Well, what I'm trying to do here is once again, I'm analyzing the language like I do with pronouns, etc. And the word colony didn't used to be a pejorative, but now to say Guam is a colony, you know, you're supposed to get excited about that. It's a form of demagoguery. And then the United States is a colonizer. You're supposed, oh, that United States. So in Samoa's case, Samoa is a colony. As I mentioned earlier, the chiefs of Samoa asked the United States in 1900, can you come in and be and bring your flag with you and be our rulers? And they have not, you know, they're apparently pretty satisfied with their relationship with the United States.
Up until the time this guy took it to the Utah court?
Say again?
Up until this incident with the Utah courts?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so what's really going on here, and I made this point before, but I know it's an uphill fight, because part of the rhetoric here, part of the demagoguery is to talk about colonies and then shift right from there to the insular cases. The United States Supreme Court in the insular cases decided these racist decisions, and that's why we're colonies, which is just dead wrong, and I've dispelled that myth on many occasions before. And I make the point that the genius of the insular cases is that it allows different islands to have different relationships with the United States government. So Samoa has a different relationship with the United States government than we do, and they like theirs. Puerto Rico's is a little different than ours. Northern Marianas is different from ours. Ours is pretty much the same as the Virgin Islands. So the nice thing about the insular cases is there's enough flexibility to have different kinds of relationships with these different islands, and that's what Samoa's gripe is. We like the relationship we have right now. We like, being under the American flag, but we like our Samoa also. So if Tina were here, Tina'd say to the Utah judge, give me a break.
Okay, thanks, Uncle Bob. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, another.
See you tomorrow.
So long.